Next
We're
time.
live.
I showered this good, so if you want to be facing the audience,
First time. We're live.
We're like, don't touch anything.
Okay, Jim, do you want to do a roll call? James Demko is here. Chris? Here. Dave Kissinger?
Here.
Donut?
Present.
Be Tom Stearns?
Private.
And Mike Banks?
Here.
It's everybody.
Wow.
Okay, does anybody have any comments or amendments to the previous meeting's minutes? If not, do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I so move.
Yeah, second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes from the previous meeting. All in favor?
Right?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Does anybody have any amendments to the agenda for this meeting? Or see that? Okay.
Oh,
Liz?
well, we wanted to amend, add to new business, a second variance application from Ron Hall. So
Okay.
that would be B under new business.
Okay.
I couldn't hear what Liz said, but
Yeah,
Someone needs to make the motion
We-
anyway, so.
yeah.
Okay,
And also, switching the agenda items,
Yeah,
You
we'll
can just do that.
you can just
we'll
do
just
that.
switch the agenda order, yeah, on the
So Heather, I can
discussion.
go first and
Right.
get it out of here. Okay.
So,
I make a motion that we amend the agenda as discussed.
second? Okay. Been moved and seconded that we amend the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. I guess it's on the public hearing for the chicken coop for Ron Hall. Yeah.
Island first.
Well, it's, I think we're postponing
Oh, okay.
that because we have to do a variance, correct?
Right, but if there's anyone who wants to speak on it, I think we
Okay.
should probably allow it since the notices went out and
Yeah.
everything. So go ahead and allow the public hearing and then
Okay.
we'll postpone the actual action item
Okay.
when it comes to it.
All right, so let's open the public hearing for Ron Hall. If there is anybody who wishes to speak, now would be the time.
I just came to, just to see what it's about,
Okay.
what the variance is that he wants,
Well,
or whatever.
what's going on is that they have the chicken coop there at their house, and they want to be able to sell the eggs from it, and they're trying to go through the procedure to make it so it's legal for them to sell the eggs.
Okay.
So,
What's called a home occupation. So then the commission used to run a business out of their house.
and the chicken coop that's existing is encroaching into the right-of-way, into the setbacks. So they're going to have to file for a variance for that as well. So that's the other part of it.
so do we do the variance first and then the hearing?
Well, we have to do the variance and vote on this at the next meeting because they have to send out a notice about the variance. And so it's basically, we're just doing the discussion about the chicken coop right now that was the conditional use permit.
The only concern that I had, am I allowed to make a comment?
Sure.
Well,
It'd be,
Well, it'd be better to do that when we're actually discussing it, which we're going to do at the next meeting.
okay, great.
So it's basically a public hearing for public comments right now. Is there anybody else who is here to comment? Okay, do we want to close the public hearing? Do you have a motion for that?
So moved.
Second?
Yeah, second.
Okay,
Jim?
Jim did. All in favor? Aye. Okay, second one is the public hearing for Heather Island for a special use permit for constructing, maintaining parking in the right-of-way at First Street and Birch Street. I open the public hearing for comments concerning that. Is there anybody here who would like to comment concerning?
Yeah, I'm here because of that. And the mailing I got, it wasn't real clear on exactly where it's going to be. There was just a big circle. So that was my first question. Take pictures of it, I guess.
I'm trying to think if there's a good map in here or not.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no. You show the map.
okay.
It's a pretty good map. I knew where it was, I knew there was a whole set, I knew what you were distracted.
Did we receive any correspondence?
Joe?
No, yeah. No,
Other than
the letters were sent out to everybody
Yeah.
within 600 feet, and there was nothing came back to us, either pro nor con.
I think the only thing we had on that
I really had
was,
a comment from
was-
the public. And your name is?
Laurel McCullough.
Laura McCullough, that's the first
I've got
comments.
a little, and I've got 2 lots in the house,
Right.
a little further
Mm-hmm.
down. My comment on that is, I've heard a lot of people say there needs to be a turnout because we've got traffic issues now and then, especially when newer people move into the neighborhood and haven't quite figured, this person's driveway is here, and this person maybe just pull in. And my thought is having usable parking is much more practical than having a dedicated turnout, because you can turn into a parking lot, but you can't park in a turnout. And I don't know how constructive that is with this, but it's someone who's
yeah,
lived down there and owns property down there. I think it's much more practical to have parking you can turn into than turnout you can't park in.
thank you for the comment.
Can I comment on my own behalf too?
Sure.
It's kind of the idea here was to have the parking back from the boardwalk and kind of provide a turnout there as part of the process. We don't want parking right on the boardwalk where you need to back out onto the boardwalk.
Mhm.
We've got enough of that as it is, but if the parking set back a little ways, the kind of a driveway area that will also serve as a turnout.
And I know I'm always commenting the same thing on things that are proposed in there, but just keeping in mind the aesthetic impact on the neighborhood, because we get a lot of people that come down and comment on how unique it is, how wonderful it is, how much they love visiting and photographing. And people don't come to visit and photograph industrial areas, they come to see unique things, and just to keep in mind the aesthetic impact of anything also.
Oh, she's signed up,
Liz, did you get a message from Harold?
I was just going to say
Okay.
that we did get one phone call, which was from Harold Medallion,
Mhm.
and he had no opposition to the project. That's
Okay.
basically it. He sent an email.
And whereabouts is he located in relation to that project?
He has property right there.
Yeah,
Okay,
his lot's right up.
Discussed it
Yeah.
verbally between us. What we want to do is, as part of this also, we'd have access to this lot, which,
Okay.
as it is right now, doesn't really have any access.
okay.
So give them free access to this lot.
It's actually on this map right here. that
Okay.
is
Yeah.
included. It says
Which
H-
lot is it?
It's H. Medallion.
Okay. I'm trying to,
You can see it adjacent to the proposed area. It's lot 4.
okay. Okay, I see, yeah. Okay.
So he physically actually came in and,
He sent an email, which basically said that. I don't know what happened to the email.
said he had no problem with it.
Okay.
So,
And that while
it actually is gonna help him
Yeah.
gain access to his property.
Are there any further comments concerning this project? Okay, Go ahead.
Carl Hagerman with Public Works, and I did supply an email to Liz, which is in your packet.
Yeah.
Regarding numerous conditions, just basically protect the infrastructure that's at that location. We've got a water main that's old and probably pretty
Yeah.
fragile, that Mr. McDonald needs to be aware of and be careful of, as well as the culvert that goes through there. But I am in support of the project. I think it makes sense and provide parking to his tenants and himself, as well as providing a turnout on the road. It is a one-way street, so I see a lot of positives here. And as long as we're careful, or he's careful when he puts it in, there shouldn't be any issues.
Chris?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wally, did you see the conditions and seems like it's workable?
Oh, sure, yeah, that's fine. And just for information, I'm hoping to get Reed Brothers to come in and do this operation, because they've got the small dump truck, a small backhoe, and so on. They've worked on that bridge before, so they know all about the weight limits and what's required, and, you know, they're first-rate guys, so I think they can do a good job.
Mhm.
I apologize for being late.
Oh,
I
no
assume we're
problem.
talking only about the upland side and not the water side, is that true?
Correct, yes.
Okay. But my concern is the same as Laurel's, and that is that the design and development be done in a way that is thinking about the aesthetic sense there. And I know there's a lot of uses and things are changing. There's the parkland. I mean, if you look at that piece of property, where cars park now, and they're parking face in, and I don't know what you're proposing. You probably spoke to it. No, we didn't see this. We just had the circle, and I should have come in and asked. I intended to. And the park, which is there. So I guess one of the questions is, I know there's kind of a, I can't see the key. There's kind of a stream, you know, it's a drainage stream that's there. So is that going to be impacted, or would that drainage stream stay open still?
What Harold and me talked about doing was putting a piece of culvert in there where the stream is, because he's gonna wanna fill it across over to his property.
Because that comes across primarily on his property. So that was one of my questions. And then the other thing was just developing it in a way so with the Centennial, with the parkland there, and the already existing parking, and this parking, and the boardwalk, and then what Laurel mentioned about tourism in town, because we are in a heavily, heavily traveled and photographed area, just to keep all that in mind. And
I hope everybody can trust me to take care of that. I mean,
That actually is, oh, sorry, keep going.
go ahead. Well, and Wally, you've been a great Birch Street neighbor, and you've developed the housing unit, the place you're now living is nicely designed and well maintained and handled. So.
It's kind of something we all have to think about, because we're all zoned multifamily and commercial, and so if we all decide to build to the extent of what we can do, there's just no physical way to put parking in there for everybody. So setting a precedent of having nicely done parking that's not overly impacting things, I think is really important. Because if I built everything I could, I'd have 10 units. So, you know, that would be a lot of cars.
And that's another comment I might make with the zoning going on and the comprehensive plan in place. I would like to ask that we really take all of Birch Street and give it some additional, in the future, discussion and look, both as a historical tourist area, because we've got Singley Alley and our end, it's all kind of connected. And so with the comprehensive plan, I think that that's something we should really look at, and those kind of considerations that Laurel's mentioning.
Not that I plan to do that, but, you know, setting up a precedent for it every time and not people springing it.
I think everybody on the commission already realizes that's kind of a special zoning area down there, historical zoning, or whatever it's called. C3, is it? So there are a lot of limitations of what we can do down there now as it is.
Are there any further public comments? Is there a motion to close the public comment section?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Madam Chairman, I'd like to take a 2-minute break to check.
Okay.
Carry on without me, I'm sure.
Okay, we're going to the section of visitors' views related to the agenda items. I'd like to keep comments to 2-minute limit, so we're not here for too long of a time. Are there any visitors' views related to the agenda items?
Are we, is this the time to say anything that, about the conditional use permit and that type of thing? Is that open at this point?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just still have, I have a couple things I'd like to say about it. The first thing, I guess, the one that I think is probably, to me, one of the most important parts of what we're looking at there is what the purpose of a single-family residential district is. And, I mean, if you read the first, paragraph in this residential district zoning area, I mean, it just says the purpose of the single-family residential district is to provide a sound and attractive residential neighborhood. I mean, that's the #1 goal of any residential, the way that this piece of property is owned. That's the #1 goal we should be looking for. And when I look and I read here that, we have what wants to be put there, is there was a permit before to be able to have a net shed and storage there with a certain size building, 100-foot back and 50-foot from this side, and a net shed. And it seems like that it never got met because it wasn't enough room. So are we talking about somebody that wants a commercial enterprise in a residential area? Or are we talking about a net shed that, could fit the criteria that probably it should? And the things that want to be stored there is fishing gear, crab pots, seines, line, cargo vans, flatbeds, skiffs, miscellaneous fishing equipment. I mean, it's way more, I think, than what should fit in that area. And that's my comment. There's my 2 minutes. Okay.
All right. Any other additional comments related to the agenda items?
Yes, I'll speak. It's Katrina Miller. I live at 586 Minkoff Highway. I don't really know what else I can tell you guys about this. We've been round and round, so I hope that you grant us our conditional use permit and we can move on and follow the guidelines. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any visitors' views unrelated to agenda items? Report of staff members. You have any comments for comp plan stuff or?
Contractors are coming to town February 26th, 27th, 28th. They're going to have opportunities for public meetings here downtown and also out at the trees, and we'll be announcing the schedule for that. And also, the department just issued the 2014 building permit report, and that's been emailed to you, and then there's hard copies available here and at Public Works.
Oh, and is the findings so far on the comp plan are supposed to be compiled, what they say, the 20th? Somewhere around there?
We're trying to have them out sometime by the end of the month, and then people have an opportunity to comment by the middle of March.
Okay.
Mr. Chair? Were you ever going to meet with them?
Yeah.
Okay.
You've been out of town?
Yeah, I know. Well, it's just a question. Yeah,
Yes.
when they come back to town.
Yeah.
Are we going to meet?
Yes.
Is the intent to meet during that time
Yep.
period when they're in town? Okay. And do we have a
Yeah.
time?
I don't think we have a date and time completely nailed down on that.
I think it's Friday the 27th, and we don't have it.
We don't have a
totally
time nailed
but
down, but yeah, there
We should
is
have
a
some.
meeting of the whole team, and you're supposed to be there, so. Yeah.
Mr. Chair, there is a, what is it, a growers workshop that day? It's going to be,
Oh, growers, oh, that's right.
yeah. I mean, I can definitely come to this, but I did want to attend part of that.
I think it's going to be an hour and a half.
Our
So,
meeting? Okay.
Our meeting.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
Thanks.
Okay, on to unfinished business. We're going to shuffle the schedule a little bit around from what we've got on the listed here. So since the Lawn Hall has been postponed, because we have to do the variance on that now at the next meeting, let's discuss the Heather Island, and then we'll move on to the Miller conditional use permit.
Yep. I don't see any, I think what Wally's doing is good, and my only concern was as long as Carl signed off on it, I don't see any issues.
I think as long as Carl's conditions are followed, that's what I would suggest. And also address any concerns of the neighbors as far as keeping it looking nice in that area. So.
It's a motion to recommend to the assembly.
So.
Yeah, the assembly has to approve
Yeah,
this.
so
You're just approving.
you're just
it.
making a recommendation.
Okay, so let's make anybody have a motion to recommend this to the assembly?
I'll make a
Can you
motion.
guys hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I keep saying something, but nobody can hear me, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I got one question, is because there's a pedestrian path going through that area, and Carl did an excellent job in his letter, but is there going to be a protection for that pedestrian path that goes between the Birch and the library?
We want to make sure that pedestrian path is kept open to the public up to the library.
Is there an actual pedestrian path there? Is that an official path?
I don't know. Carl?
I can answer that question.
Yeah.
There is a path that goes through the woods right there, but it's not really recognized as an official path.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay, I understood when they gave that property, there was supposed to be a path going through there, and I don't know where the official one is, so that's what I've always understood. So I just wanted to make sure.
There will be a path through that property as that is hopefully going to be going in as part of the library landscaping project, which is getting
Okay,
off the ground.
just a couple people made comments on it, and I also walked that path, so I was just asking. Thank you.
So the path in question will actually be to the west of this site, and it will not connect to this parking area at all. I think the path that goes through there right now kind of does.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of trailblazed through there. So
Yeah.
the official path, when it is complete, will not be adjacent to this project.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Findings of fact.
Yes. All right. It's the right side. Yeah, that's the right side. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Let's read through this real quick. Okay, do we have agreement to recommend to the Borough Assembly to issue a special use permit? On this, the Borough Assembly shall issue a permit if the request is found to be of a beneficial nature to the community and the adjacent surrounding properties will not be adversely impacted. Any discussion?
I think that's true.
I think so.
Yeah.
I do.
Okay.
Um,
Do we need
Can you
to,
throw out a few facts on why that's true, please?
Well, we've heard public testimony to say that it doesn't adversely affect the people that live there, and it will be an improvement to the land there, and will give
I believe-
added parking.
yeah, add additional parking and also a pull-out which allows for better access, so,
I think it'll make it smoother for traveling.
yeah. So I feel it's beneficial.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that Petersburg Planning and Zoning Commission recommend to the Borough Assembly that they issue a special permit for Heather Island Incorporated for the construction of a parking pull-out.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm sure that was based on the findings of fact. that-
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. As we now move on to the Aaron and Katrina Miller conditional use permit, and open that for discussion.
Did you postpone the long haul?
Oh.
A motion to postpone.
Oh, we need a motion to postpone, that's right. Is there a motion to postpone the Ron Hall conditional use permit till the next meeting so we can handle the variance?
So moved.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I just want to make a comment on
Yeah.
that as why, you kind of touched
Yeah.
on it a little bit so everybody knows. When he asked for that permit and I went up there to post the sign like we do in the yards, I posted the sign and that's the first time it struck out at me where this chicken coop was. Because I went in the corner and looked down the road, I looked on the property, looked at his house and I said, oh my gosh, this is a little bit close because on his map, which is not to scale. So that's how this came to light. And then I brought Ron in to the office and told him what my findings were and so on and so forth, and so he agreed to that. I mean, it was nice of him to not get upset that we've gotten this far with scheduling a public hearing and actually him paying already for a conditional use permit that we weren't even gonna vote on yet, because now he has to go through a condition, or a variance application, so. And one other thing, if you'll see on your application, in looking at it too, he actually, when I started adding things up, he actually, by this chicken coop and that other little shed he has gone over his 3,500 square feet of lot coverage by 120 square feet or something like that. So not a big deal, but that is included in his variance too, for a variance of that 10-yard front yard setback, being as how he's on a corner, so he doesn't have a front and a back, he's got two fronts. And to excuse that extra 132 square feet of accessory buildings, as we call all the other buildings, incidental to the rest of the structure. So that's just an explanation of what's going on here. So hopefully you'll go through it next time and you'll have two public hearings for the same guy on the same lot for two different things. So. Yes, sir.
And Joe, was he planning on being here so we can ask him?
Yes, he will.
Okay.
He would have been here, yeah, he would have been here today. But I says, until we can go through the public hearing and we get into the discussion where you can answer questions and stuff, and you can ride by and see what impact it has on the neighborhood there too.
Isn't it portable?
It is portable to some, but we measured up and to maintain setbacks with that, there's really no other place on his property that he can get logically to put that little, it's only an 8x8 building, but put it so it's 10 foot into the setbacks to keep it 2 foot out of his house, so. Yes.
And you contacted the adjacent neighbors? I mean, that's the only thing.
Yeah, he's contacted the adjacent neighbors and talked to them, and I was surprised that when he said that he has had only 2 complaints about his chicken coops so far. And I said, really, that's good, maybe you should bring that up too. But he said, yeah, but the 2 complaints were from the neighbors that were mad that he got rid of his roosters.
What?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, they said they like the feel in the morning when they hear the roosters. I'm kidding you, that's not morning. What's that in work? I'm not even gonna say who the 2 neighbors were, but you can figure it out. No, they actually like the roosters crowing in the morning. So that was the only complaints he's gotten about his operation so far. So he's gonna have to jump through 2 hoops now instead of 1. But
yeah.
And can I pick, since you're both here and you both have such a vast knowledge, so we have no agricultural ordinances at all in town. I mean, you can do basically, you could have a hog farm in town, you could have chicken coops, whatever, it doesn't really matter.
I believe at the last meeting, didn't you bring up some sort of farming town too? Is it? I think you can.
Okay, I was just curious. So there's
There's a
nothing.
noise thing, I think if you call a complaint to the police officers, they can come out.
Sure.
And do something.
But isn't there some of the subdivisions that have CC&Rs that you can't have?
That would be big difference from our ordinance, though, if they want
Okay, yeah.
a covenant in a subdivision.
I just don't want people to get the impression that,
If it's a commercial operation, then, obviously they'd have to go through this whole process of on a
Public
residential
review.
lot,
Yeah.
of a
Hearing.
public review, yeah. But we don't have any kind of urban farming ordinance or anything like that.
So if I moved into town, I could start raising hogs for my personal use,
Well, you'd have to
essentially.
come talk
Okay.
to, get a conditional use
Okay.
permit.
Well, no, I mean.
Your commercial property out there, you probably could use the back lot there for a hog farm.
Yep.
Okay.
Enough?
Yeah, that was a go. Okay.
It sounds very good. That one, you can find that a little better, it sounds like. Llamas. Cougars.
Okay, let's move on to the reconsideration of the conditional use permit for the Millers. I'm opening that up for discussion among the commissioners. I think we do need to put some storage limitations on not necessarily amount of what's outside, but what is put outside. And I also think we need to clarify the building size. I know we've had in the last motion that it could not be so large that it precludes building a house on the property in the future. As I understand it, the lot's 100 by 100, which means they've got 3,500 square feet of building space. I think setting aside 1,000 square feet to build a house and allowing a 2,500 square foot net shed is an adequate limitation in that area.
How big is the lot, Katrina?
198 by 180.
Yeah, it's
198
almost
square foot that up.
So it's bigger?
It's bigger.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've got a question. Isn't that area up there multi-family?
Not that particular zoning there, no. There's multifamily right
Yeah,
behind.
but the apartments are, that cul-de-sac is different than down where the house is.
Yeah, where this property is over next door, and that's zoned residential.
Residential.
Joe?
37,620 square feet.
37,620 is their total.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's the max on the coverage?
35%.
I just want to make sure that there is,
Times 0.35 is what?
Oops.
I just want to make sure there's enough ground set
Screwed up.
aside to build a house, is my concern. So that they're not, we don't want to leave only 500 square feet of footprint to build a house. Because that's not going to be an adequate size house. An adequate house is, the average in the country right now is, I think, 1,800 square feet. So you build a two-story house, if you got 1,000 square feet set aside, you could do that. So,
Yeah, the footprint will only be
Yeah.
500 in the two-story house.
well, a two-story house, but 500, you get a 1,000 square foot house is the maximum you can go.
Right.
If you have 1,000, you can go to 2,000, which puts it in the
Right.
realm of reality. So that's my concerns. Anyone else have further? Yes?
I was up there yesterday, and it looks like there's a for sale sign on the property. Is it for sale?
Well, I think Aaron would probably sell it if somebody wanted to buy it, but
Well, that's another consideration we might think about is.
nobody's
like-
called. It's been up there for a while.
Well, I went back through minutes of the last meeting. It looks like it's been going on since 2006, and there's no building on there yet. Nothing. And that's what I was concerned about is, in that area there, you're not going to make a residential area look like a residential area all the way around because it's industrial. It's backed up to industrial, and I think that mistake was made years ago when it was zoned like it is.
Without a grain belt.
And without any kind of a separation or transition. So it's really difficult from my perspective to look at it and say, wow, yeah, this is residential when it's, in fact, doesn't look like residential to me. But on the other hand, these people that buy property up there want to have a resident and have a neighborhood. So I'm kind of at a toss-up for,
Well, I think we should kind of go somewhere in the middle as far as, what is allowed on other residential property throughout the borough as far as building a net shed. And if we're going to allow them to have some outside storage, that we limit that to, say, certain things like a pile of crab pots and maybe a couple of skiffs in working condition rather than all kinds of just miscellaneous whatever. And also it makes it easy for Joe to be able to drive by and see, okay, this is what should be there, and if anything else is there, then he can go make a comment about it.
Excuse me, Chairman?
Yes.
To kind of summarize my memory is when Weavers were originally there with Millers, that's what we were all trying to accomplish. In fact, we also discussed that whole strip, making it like a green belt. We were trying to fix that problem of what happened when there was no green belt between the industry and use the road and force the whole lot system. And that's why we ended up okaying it, because we were trying to fix the problem.
That is correct. Jim?
Yeah, you know that I'm sort of the latest stumbling block on the process here. But again, I just want to re-emphasize here what my problems were. And I'm sort of with Mike in the fact that this is zoned residential, and there's no intent here to have a residence. When it was purchased, it was there was no intent. I think it would have been great if the city council, changed the zoning for them, and I think it's, if they can get through that, fine. And I'm in agreement that the zoning there, the transition sucks. And we've got a little bit of conflicting language in our ordinances here. But if you read what's written and the intent of the language, the intent of it is in the residential zoning to have residences. And then a secondary use of the property is storage. So I just think we're held, unfortunately, to the standards that we took an oath to uphold. So I'm not saying I like opposing anything going on there, other than, if the residence was first, that'd be fine. But I don't believe that there's going to be a residence up there, unless it was put in there secondary just to meet and we can't force that. So that's my spin.
I also want to make sure, did everybody get the letter from the appraiser? So.
Is it public comment now, or no? Or is it just you?
No, it's just discussion.
Okay.
I don't know, we've been running around on this, and I don't know if the conditions we put on it, the size of the building, if I'm correct, when we discussed this before, we discussed no containers. There were containers there, they had to be covered.
Well, they can't be visible.
They can't be visible. You can use a container, but you can cover them up. But so you can't say no container. I somewhat agree with Jim, but we can't determine what somebody's intent is on a piece of property, whether they plan on or don't plan on using it for a residence or building a residence in the future. And then if we say, no, you can't build a net shed, then, then maybe what we need to do is we need to talk to the assembly and say, okay, if you don't want us to do this, then let's have some clear language in an ordinance that prohibits the storage of fishing gear or the construction of any fishing-related type of structures in residential areas. That's the only way to really clear it up. Otherwise,
or some language that puts some limitations on what commercial fishing gear can be stored on residential property. But I think that we could allow a conditional use permit for a net shed with some limited outside storing and not be out of the bounds of what is typically allowed in a residential area.
So that said, unless we want to go to the assembly and ask them to put more restrictive language in, my understanding of it is we cannot determine the intent of a person, whether they're going to build a house, whether they're going to live in it or not. But we can provide a conditional use permit for a gear storage shed or a shed, whatever they want to put in it, because that's consistent with the conditional use permits that have been granted many times here in town, if I'm correct. I mean, I drive around town, I see a lot of storage sheds that obviously have conditional use permits that have been granted in the past. So I don't know why, are we going to start from now on saying, okay, you can't put a commercial or even, you can't put anything on a residential piece of property that's used for the storage of commercial equipment. If that's what we're going to do in the future, then yeah, I'll vote to not do this permit. But unless we're going to do this down the line, I think we need to talk about that. Mr. Bird.
Wasn't there a conditional use permit already granted?
There was a conditional use permit.
And so nothing happened?
It timed out, then we went and applied. Rather than renew it, we went ahead, there was a suggestion made that we go for the zoning change. Well, then it completely expired. And so then, because of that, we've now back to them reapplying for a new conditional use permit.
I follow that, but what I'm getting at is you have this time period of a year when there's absolutely nothing happened, no shed or anything was built, and so they're out of compliance with the conditional use permit. So, in my mind, the time is lapsed.
That's the old conditional use permit has lapsed. What we're discussing now is a new conditional use permit.
I know, and what I'm saying is, we've already went through this. We could go on, this is year 10. You guys well know a lot more than I do about this. But what I've read through all those minutes and stuff, this is never going to end unless...
Well, if we do issue the conditional use permit and put some serious conditions on that, if they do not get the shed built within the time period, then the conditional use permit's done, and we're not going to accept another application for another one at that point.
Well, that would be up to a future planning.
Right.
Decide whether to accept an application or not.
Excuse me, Liz, do you happen to know the two little areas in there that we were looking over that were conflicting? No. Okay. All right.
Sorry.
Okay. I should have.
Dave.
Can I ask Mr. Bertinelli, do you have any idea how many conditional use permits have been issued in the past for this type of activity in town?
In the past?
Yeah. I mean, what's the historical precedence?
For net sheds alone?
Yeah.
On a piece of property with no house?
No, just on commercial, on residential property.
On commercial
residential property,
storage.
I can think of 2 up Cornelius, 1 up Rambler. I have a handful of them at most. That's what I can come up with as over the years. I can't. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. That's the only one. I think 2 or 3 up Cornelius. And Bushman built that one up Rambler Street, but it was on a separate on his property though.
Adjacent to his house?
Yeah. It was just incidentally he'd already built the house.
So where it's standalone with no...
Standalone, yeah, that was kind of...
It's mostly Cornelius, I think, right?
That's...
Has the commission, in your vast knowledge, ever rejected a conditional use permit for construction of something like this?
Well, you're asking a lot of my memory.
I know.
I can't think of one because it just doesn't come up that often. Like I said, I can't think of one. And when, as you know, as we went up Cornelius there, it was fairly easy to grant those at that given time because it seems like that's the direction Cornelius was going because they attempted to do some rezoning up there too, but the neighbors in the downhill side complain about traffic if they turn that into industrial commercial, so that's where the next sheds came into play.
Okay.
I can't think of any. And then on that note too, I guess as far as commercial industrial, I think the commission knows, and I believe it was told you, that they have been offered a piece of industrial property in exchange for that single family in the same subdivision.
Well, the deciding factor for me, I mean, if it was a nice-looking net shed or whatever, and there was a room for a house, I could go along with that. But the way the assessor looked at it and the letter was written that it will detrimentally affect the value of the neighboring properties, that to me gives us a reason why we can't pass it by the fact finding. It just, it doesn't make sense in that respect to devalue the neighboring properties, if that is in fact the truth. I don't know, do we go by an assessor's estimate of what's going to be changed by the value of the surrounding properties if we allow that? I don't know, but that would make a big difference to me if the neighboring properties are going to be devalued. And I don't see how we could justify that to the assembly.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to say, I think the assessor said it would not adversely affect.
That's
It
what
would not
I
adversely affect?
read in
Yeah.
here.
Okay, maybe it was a different,
Having spoken to him, I think the problem is they have no way to quantify that. And so that's where,
Yeah.
he's looking at numbers, and unless someone's coming in saying, I have my lots for sale for $25,000, but the only offers I get are $15,000 offers because of X.
yeah.
Yeah.
He has no way of quantifying, so he doesn't have a way of showing any change in value.
But in a comparison, there was a comparison, I think, that was mentioned in another letter from,
Okay, I haven't seen another letter, but this is the one that,
This is the one
there was a
that
comparison
received.
that said that,
I don't know if you looked at that one or
I
not.
thought you were referring to this one.
no, this was
Oh, okay.
a different letter.
Sorry.
It's in the,
Sorry,
it's in the,
I
it's in the minutes of the last, for, over the past 10, 12 years. That's where I found it, it was in the minutes, but it wasn't this one.
Oh, okay.
This is the most recent one we've received. That's why, after reading this letter and his concerns of the outside storage being a bit more of an issue, and discussions I've had with Liz concerning this, I do believe that allowing the net shed, since there's a precedent for a net shed on the property, as long as we limit what can be stored outside, so it's not going to turn into a junkyard, and make it so that it's very simple for Joe to be able to enforce it, would be in keeping with what we see going on in the rest of residential areas of the borough. If we don't put any sort of limitations on it, then I do see it being not in keeping with what the intention in the residential neighborhood is. So that's kind of where I'm coming from on it, but.
Do you have 5 net sheds in the whole town? And that's what you're basing that on?
Mr. Chair? Further reading his letter, and I thought it was a pretty good letter. He said, conditions may include, yet not be limited to, site obscuring fencing or vegetation, specific mention of no exterior storage of equipment, etc., allowable size of any storage structures, etc. And if I recall, we had put conditions on the size of the net shed. There's not going to be any exterior storage of equipment. We had put in conditions of a green belt, and we also had put in conditions of a fence, if my recollection,
Obscuring fence, yes.
obscuring fence on 3 of the sides. I mean, to me, we're making it to the point where if I was in Miller's, I'd be looking at it that maybe it's not going to work, but that's their decision, not mine. But, I mean, so basically what we're asking to do is we're going to ask them, we're going to give them, if I understand this, if we go back to what we originally discussed, there's going to be a fence on 3 sides, there's going to be a green belt, there's going to be a size restriction on the building. We requested that the containers be removed or incorporated into the building, and that there be no outside storage of equipment. That's my understanding, at least, that we were at this at our last meeting sometime in the fall.
Yeah, we were talking, I think we need clarification on equipment, what we're talking about on that.
Right.
So,
I think at the time we were talking about equipment, we meant like backhoes, forklifts, things of that nature.
Yeah,
things that a person would consider
And-
that you might not want to have parked next to your house.
yeah.
Could I ask a question? Would you be able to stack crab pots and rope and stuff all over the rest of the lot? Is there any, I mean, are you gonna restrict a certain area to that storage? Because if not, then that whole rest of the lot could be, I mean, they've got over half of that lot covered right now. And it's all stuff that they don't wanna get rid of, so they're gonna have to do something with it. I don't know where they're gonna put it. It doesn't make a lot of sense if they're, you know, I mean, it's gonna all be there somehow.
I could see,
100 feet tall.
I could see limiting what's outside to stuff that is too bulky to put inside practically, like a stack of crab pots. But I don't see any reason to allow, just nets covered with blue tarps and things like that. That could all be stored inside the building. I mean, it'd be fairly simple to say you're allowed crab pots out there, you're allowed a couple of skiffs out there in working condition, not something that's a piece of junk. And that would be in keeping of, and be reasonable and easy for Joe to enforce. Otherwise, it's going to get out of hand, I think.
Mr. Chair, could I ask, Joe, I'm sorry. What do you consider easy to enforce?
Chris pretty much covered it. I'm not gonna say if crab pots, if they're stacked, they say 150 crab pots, well, I'm not going to count crab pots. If I can drive by the lot and see that they got stacked crab pots, they're allowed. If I drive back the lot and see they got a backhoe sitting out there, that's not allowed. It's easy to fix, it's an easy site. Line, rope, buoys, those got to be inside. I'm gonna let all of that outside. If you limit that kind of stuff that you can see, something you can see from somebody's yard, then that's, if you put it in the conditions, we can enforce it. But don't make it too vague that I can't spot it from the road.
Don't make it too vague, or don't make it too time-consuming for him to enforce. We don't want to have him have to walk on the property and start counting crab pots or start, doing that, because otherwise then it's hard to enforce.
I'd say 2 skiffs maximum. If there's 3, then they're out of compliance, stuff like that. It's
Yeah,
something
that's easy to count from the road, so.
But you can't necessarily determine working condition from the road.
Yeah, and the working condition of the road is kind of good.
Well, it's,
No.
I mean, we just want something that doesn't look like it's
No.
been run over with a backhoe.
Well, if you put a quantity, if you put a quantity on it, it would be, a large item like a skiff, so then all of a sudden they're not taking up the rest of their lot for storage for every other friend's gifts too, because we got all this extra space. We have 15 skiffs there,
Right.
Say 2, what's reasonable, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, normally, the amount of pots that you have would have some relationship to the amount of your pot permit.
Mm-hmm.
So it wouldn't, I mean, you could use that as a guideline for some quantity. If you've got a 225
But it
pot
makes it hard
permit,
to.
it would be more than somebody had a 50.
I can't
But,
count the stack.
I mean, I don't think you
But
can
this is
say
getting
that.
down to way too far.
So
Yeah,
you could
just say
change
crab
permits
pots.
and buy more
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crab
permits.
pots, don't
Yeah.
put a quantity on it.
But what if you had other people that wanted to store their crab pots there, then they had a whole yard full of crab pots?
Yeah.
That's what we want.
That's what I was
Mr. Chair?
thinking.
Usually if somebody's going to start opening up a commercial facility, they need to have a permit for that. I mean, if they just I guess you could let your buddies store stuff for free, but, but my understanding is that if you start having something like that, then they'd be out of compliance with their permit.
Yeah.
True, if they, I realize you could have your friends, say,
It's just a friend deal.
Just a buddy deal, there's no money involved.
Yeah.
I mean, I just don't let that
Right.
happen.
I kind of, see that this is going to be a difficult prospect to come up with parameters to restrict somebody that you're definitely allowing for commercial use, unless you put, you can only cover so many square feet plus the net shed, period, no matter what you put there. I mean, if you're going to allow commercial gear there, then you're going to allow commercial gear, and it's not fair to him to have to pick out which kind of commercial gear you're going to store. It's, I don't know, in my mind, it would be a square footage thing to say,
Yeah, but then that gets to be
Then
an
I gotta
issue.
go measure the
He's got to
square
go measure
footage
the
or-
square footage.
yeah, but you can't count crab pots.
But measuring square footage gets to be another whole headache for,
Yeah,
Yeah.
this just
If
doesn't,
you had a fence at 100 feet all the way across and it was behind it, that might work. Or
There was-
8 or 7 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah, the fence was one of the things that was in the conditional permit too.
Mr. Chair, I believe that it was if I recall, it was an 8-foot fence,
8-foot tall fence, yeah.
8-foot tall fence.
I think it's 6.
6.
6,
6 foot?
okay.
I thought it was 8 foot.
6.
Okay.
Last
Or
time-
maybe-
8's maximum.
Last time
Yeah.
you guys
Can't
talked about
build in
6.
town.
Okay.
8-foot fence.
A fence you can't see through?
It was obscured fence.
No, you can't build one higher than 8. There's a limit on the height, 6 foot, yeah.
I put an 8-foot.
Can't.
You did?
Mr. Chair, since we're just making a
write it down.
recommendation to the assembly.
No, this is
No, this is-
conditional.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Oh, okay. Shucks.
Nice try.
Yes, I feel.
It can be appealed to the assembly, your decision, but this is your call.
Building
That's a
with
different one for
folding
Paul.
top.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys, that's the original one they had, right? That shows that's what they actually gave them to abide by the first time.
Mhm.
That's the one they got and had for 2 years, I think, and never did it.
Jim?
We've been discussing the difficulties of enforcement, of parameters, of dimensions, and it looks like something you need a community to, commissions just to come up with the, these details. And my proposal at this time is just to give the Millers some of our impressions and some of what we'd like to see, and have them come back with a drawing that would, and see if we could approve of that. Because frankly, I don't want to spend the time in this commission going over all those details and trying to come up with a plan. I don't think we should have to. I think by now they know some of what the problems are, and I think they need to come back with a plan that we can give a thumbs up or thumbs down on. And I'm still going to go with a thumbs down because it doesn't meet the general intent of the zoning. But that's just where I'm at. We can't be sitting there kind of.
Another thing, I would put a limit, no matter what happens with this conditional use permit, if the property is sold, I would want to see that this didn't pass on. It was the end of this special use permit, and it doesn't go with the lot. Because things could change in the future and everything.
I don't know.
But I don't know if
Once
you
you
could
build
do
the
it.
structure, you pretty much, it's there.
I don't know if you can
Yeah.
put, I think a conditional use permit stays with the property. I don't know if we can put that kind of
No.
limitation on it.
Only if they don't meet the conditions of it, right? Then you can
Then
vote.
we can revoke it.
Quicken Loans puts it on the house. You sell your house, the loan doesn't go with it.
Again, let me just emphasize that they know what they need to put on there, okay?
Yeah.
And we also know what our difficulties are and what the square footages, et cetera, need to be.
Is there any additional?
I think Jim hit some good points that maybe they would be able to come up with an idea of how they would present this in a way that would be acceptable to the neighbors and meet a time constraint that they pick that they could feel comfortable following within the time frame of a conditional use permit, and maybe have an order of sequence of maybe, the fence goes up first, the net shed, blah, 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 and do it in a timely manner that would be acceptable to the neighbors. If they brought us something that everybody could look at and say, yeah, this makes sense, or maybe we could do this first, maybe we could do that. I don't know, would you guys be amiable to that?
Well, I think I have have to meet all the things in a year, right? That's what I have is a year.
Mhm.
And then if I need an extension, I can get another year. I feel like the first thing I'm gonna do is finish rocking the lot. And then we are gonna put up a fence, and then we're gonna build the net shed. That's the plan. I know it's a hard decision, but let's just do it and move on. Yes or no, because I don't know what to say. Nobody's gonna be happy. Somebody's gonna be mad. So, you know, we're trying, we're gonna build the fence. It's not cheap to do all this stuff. It's gonna cost a lot of money. You know?
Dave?
Mr. Chair, could we review the conditions as we have them so far on this, or since we have some new members, so they know what exactly we're talking about?
The conditions are a limitation of the net size of the net shed on the property as to not preclude building a house, which I've proposed, making sure that we're setting aside at least 1,000 square feet to be able to build a house on the property. So that way it still can stay in the category of residential as far as that consideration is. The second one is no containers visible. You know, if they want to stick containers inside their shed, that's up to them. That's not our concern. We also wanted no commercial equipment parked on the lot, so no backhoes, commercial trucks, that sort of thing. We've also discussed a limitation of outside storage, only limiting that to crab pots and maybe a couple of skiffs. And also requirement of a green belt across the front of the property to screen it from the adjoining residential property, as well as a obscure fence on 3 sides of the lot. So that's adjoining the 2 other residential lots on the sides and on the street side. No fence is required on the back side. We've also proposed reducing the setback on the rear setback for the net shed to 10 feet so that they're able to push the net shed as far back on the lot as possible. So that's where we stand.
Mr. Chair, I think and you guys realize that the back lot where we're not requiring the fence, the 10-foot setback is industrial. That's where John's got his boatyard at right now. If I'm correct.
No, it's
no, it's not. I mean, it's the other side, right?
Yeah. I went up there. And there's lots of industrial stuff on the other side.
So and if I'm missing anything, please pipe in, because that's where I think we stand right now.
Yeah,
And
that's what I follow.
We've got some dimensions, all the dimensions.
Yeah.
And then, Mr. Chair, I think Mrs. Miller is correct. It's a 1-year permit, correct? And they can get a 1-year extension, and that's as far as we can go with this, correct? So that's that brings us up to at least the current history as of last fall.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we grant this conditional use permit with the conditions that we've just discussed.
I'd second that.
All in favor?
Wait.
Or what? We got to do the findings of fact. Yes. Okay. I got to find that right findings of fact packet, because I don't. No,
I wish I could just put an appraiser
Because we made a motion.
report that I got in
Yeah.
7 minutes, because it didn't say
keep
this.
Different appraisers. More comments.
Yeah.
Okay. So are there any additional comments
Yeah.
concerning that motion before we move into the findings of fact? I guess there's no comments. We must consider the suitability of the property and character of the surrounding property and the economic and aesthetic effects of the property proposed use upon the property and neighborhood. The use will be permitted if it is in harmony with the general purpose and intent of this title. whereas, where the use will be in keeping with the uses generally authorized for the zone in which the use is to take place, the commission shall require a conditional user to take those steps necessary so that the permitted conditional use will not be offensive because of injurious or noxious noise, vibration, smoke, gas, fumes, odors that will be hazardous to the community because of danger of fire or explosion. So, what are our facts on this?
Mr. Chair, I think the decisions of the finding of fact is based upon the conditions that we've put on this conditional use permit. That's kind of redundant, isn't it?
Kind of begs the question, Dave.
I believe with the conditions that we put on it, that it can be in harmony with the community, as long as they follow those guidelines. If they don't follow those guidelines, or those requirements, I could see it as being a problem, and that's my statement on that. Yes, Donna?
For them to follow the guidelines we've given them, what is the deadline for them to accomplish all that?
They must accomplish everything before the permit expires, which they have 1 year, and they can file for a 1-year extension. Am I correct on that, Joe?
Because I thought earlier, my gray matter may be incorrect, was we were giving them the special use permits, we were talking this last fall about, giving it to them this spring, and they had to have all this accomplished before next fall, and we were giving it to them for a year. I thought the stuff had to all be accomplished before winter hit. That was part of the reason that we were delaying this, because of the season.
I believe that was to get stuff off the lot that we did the delay. We said that because they wanted to be able to finish the fishing season before they had to clear the stuff off the lot. If they didn't get the
But I thought we were talking about them giving them a limit. So there's a 12 months for them to accomplish this, not like 6 months to accomplish it.
Liz?
It's 12 months. They have to commence work on it in 12 months. At the last time you guys had this discussion, you had really specific dates in there by when the building permit had to be applied for, when the fence had to be up, and then the work being commenced within a year. The ordinance doesn't say it has to be completed within a year.
Okay.
Okay, so we were putting more, I just wanted to make sure, because we were putting a lot more restrictions to it. So those restrictions have been deleted then? The timeline restrictions have been deleted.
Unless you want to put those back in, Donna, or anyone else.
That was part of what you had last time.
Okay. We could put that in there, but it's a question of what times, then that opens that up.
What does Joe feel about that, or anybody else? Because I'm really on the fence because because they haven't done anything. They have the property for sale, and some of their answers to some of the questions in the past concern me about them doing something, if not doing anything, because we haven't given them a deadline, and winter's going to be coming again. So that was part of our happy medium that we were trying to make people who were concerned about us granting this to them. And by us trying to force the hand of giving them a time basis was our compromise, I thought. I just want to make sure that we're not forgetting it. That's all I'm worried about.
Okay. And do you have a proposal of what dates we should put in there? Since our timeline's completely shifted now because the hearings have gotten pushed back, do you have a proposal for dates on that, or?
Does Miller's have a timeline when they plan to do that? Are they still there?
Yes.
Yeah, we would like to start rocking in as soon as I can get.
When would the fences be completed? When could you have those completed?
I don't know, June 30th, July 30th.
We could say July 1st, make that a simple, is that?
Or would August 1st do it?
You want to make it August 1st? from opening up?
Well, my thoughts are, if you only have to begin construction within the timeline, that this could go on for another 2
Well,
years.
we're saying that this is one that has to be
Right, I'm s-
completed.
Right.
Yeah.
But I want something in there for completed. I don't want them to put this on for another year and then we have this
And I-
come on
I
us
understand
again
that.
because I just want it to be completed so we aren't being dragged into this
Well,
on and
I said
on.
we break it
Yeah.
into chunks. We said that the
Right.
fence has to be completed by this date, the building has to be completed by this date.
Correct, that's what I want put back into it,
Okay.
please.
I would say, from just my little bit of endeavor in this, is just put a timeline on the fence.
Mhm.
Because you don't know how good of a fishing season you're going to have, you don't know if you're going to be able to afford to build a net shed, but a fence would at least cover any site that's there, pretty much.
See, the fence is what they were supposed to have accomplished years ago, and they haven't done it, and so that's why I prefer calling the hand on that one. I would like it done.
I could see
I
the
agree with
fence, and
that.
that would be my only concern, is just get the fence up this year,
Mhm.
and then whatever else can happen, can happen.
I would just point out.
Within a year.
Well, it would be possible to pull the building permit, have the conditional use permit, and you never finish the net house.
Mhm.
And so then, if the net house isn't done, then you're still storing all your stuff outside. So
Correct, that's why I want a time on the
that is
stuff.
a possible scenario, if they decided not to, they could pull everything and get it started, oh, we're working on it, but then.
Well,
the time just stretches.
do we want to just say that, they've got to have the fence done by August 1st, and then they've got a total of 2 years from the time we issue this to be completely done?
On Liz's note, a building permit expires after 180 days if
Yeah.
work ceases.
Yeah.
What did you say, Joe? I
A
couldn't hear
building
you.
permit expires after 180 days if work ceases.
But they still have their conditional use to, they've
But
started.
they
Yeah.
wouldn't, but they wouldn't have
They'd
a
apply
building
another
permit.
building permit.
Yeah.
They have to file for a new building permit at that point.
Or if work is ongoing, it obviously a building permit perpetuates, but.
Yeah,
We
Yeah.
putting up more than one board
yeah.
a month.
What was the fence gonna be? What was your proposal for the fence? Where?
It had to be an obscure fence, and it has to be back,
How
I think we said 30 feet back from the front, and then on the sides, I think it meets the 10-foot setbacks. It's on the setbacks.
Is that workable for the millers?
August 1st.
The August 1st, but the setbacks, 30 feet back from the front and 10 feet back on the
I thought it
side.
was 25.
25?
Yeah, that's fine. That's what we
Yeah.
said we'd do the whole time.
Well, there's a 20-foot setback on those lots anyway,
Mhm. So, yeah,
to
but-
build anything.
Not a fence. Fence
You
can
can
be
build a fence anywhere.
on the property line.
Yeah.
That's right.
So you're saying that front line.
The front line fence is 30 feet back.
Nelson the green
How
belt.
big is the building and where's
So,
the storage?
since this has drug on for a long time, maybe what we should do is just say this permit's only good for a year. Everything, the net shed's got to be up.
Correct. That's what our first
That's
intent was to do on this, and
I mean,
I'd like to make sure that's there.
But I think addressing Mike's concern of, if they have a bad fishing season, or it's a bad fishing season, they don't have the money to finish it in 1 year, giving them another year to finish the shed, but that's a hard deadline, it has to be done by that time. It gives them, a little bit of flexibility to get it done.
Correct. I just want some type of deadline, because
Yeah.
we're all getting tired, but we want this just completed and move forward.
Mr.
Wasn't it funny?
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, then I'll make a motion that we put in the time constraints of, was it August 1st for completion of the fence?
Correct. I second that.
And what were we talking about, a year for completion?
2 years total.
2 years
From the
total
time the
for-
conditional use permit's issued.
For the net
About
shed.
It has
18
to be
months.
completed.
About 18 months.
18 months?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Would that be more acceptable to everybody?
Yeah, that would put it into fall time.
Yeah, that puts it in the fall, yeah. That would work.
Next year. So that would give this summer,
Yeah. And
next
it goes in
winter,
2
and then
summers.
all next summer.
That's why I'm saying 18 months, because it gives them 2 summers.
Okay. That's acceptable.
And
Thank you.
I don't quite understand all of what you're doing right now. I don't know where you're actually putting the fence or where the stuff's gonna be stored.
It was on the map, Joe. It's been sent to you lots of times.
On the map, there's 2 storage containers, there's
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff.
I can't understand.
Let's, make sure you're announcing who you are, if you're going to make comments, and
Okay.
address us, okay?
Okay, could I make a comment?
Yes, you can make a comment, Mr. O'Meara.
I don't, there was a map that she submitted, but you guys have made way more restrictions than that map, I believe. The map that you submitted was not what they're talking about. I haven't seen the map of what they're talking about yet.
We're talking
Right.
30 feet back from the front property line as the front fence, and
Okay.
10 feet from each side property line, the side fences.
And then
In.
where can storage be in that whole fence?
They can store inside there, but it's limited to the conditions that we are putting forth of what can be stored there.
Well, where is that?
At this point, it's crab pots and 2 skiffs.
And any limit to how many?
No limit on amount, that makes it too hard to enforce. But there's a limit of 2 skiffs.
But there's a visual limitation for Joe's easy inspection, correct, from the
Yes.
road? To make it easy on Joe, is that correct?
Yeah,
And rope, is that inside or outside?
everything else is inside.
We gotta make it easy on Joe.
Take it easy on Joe.
Yep.
And just clarification, no commercial trucks, no backhoes, no,
No sea
There
containers,
should be nothing but crab pots.
crab pots, and 2 skiffs,
Yes.
And nothing else.
and nothing
Nothing
else
else in a nutshell.
outside.
Outside any
Nothing
shed
else
that's.
outside.
Yeah.
So it should be vacant except for 2 skiffs.
And a pile of crab pots.
Hopefully stacked.
Yes.
And
Is that workable? I'm asking Millers, is that workable?
Yes,
I can't hear her.
She said yes.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're still on findings of fact.
yes.
Yeah,
By the way.
we're just refining.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted it refined.
Okay, thank you, Donna. So based on the restrictions that we put on there, I think it is within keeping with the character of that area, especially since it does back up on that industrial, and the screening is being provided, both with the fence and with a green belt. We poll the commission at this time for their votes.
Yes.
Karen, do you mind calling the roll, just so we make sure we hear? Last time we
Yes.
had a little bit of a problem
Yes.
hearing who voted which way.
Yes.
Are you done with your, this is just for finding a fact?
This is for the
A?
finding of fact A, yes.
Fry,
Yes.
Kenzinger,
Yes.
Stearns,
Yes.
Banks,
Yes.
Demko,
No.
Melvin,
Yes,
Okay. Entrances and exits and off-street parking for conditional use shall be located to prevent traffic hazards and congestion on public streets. Seeing as this is all to occur inside the yard behind the fence at the 30-foot setback, I don't see that as being a problem. Any discussion? Do you want to read the roll?
Fry,
Karen? Yes.
Kenzinger,
Yes.
Stearns,
Yes.
Banks,
Yes.
Demko,
Yes.
Melvin,
yes,
Okay. In addition to the conditions in subsections A and B of this section, schools and government and civic buildings and all other public uses shall meet the following conditions. The proposed location of the use and size and character of the site shall facilitate maximum benefit and service to the public.
Does not apply.
Does not apply. So, basically has past the findings of fact, so now we move on to a vote. And before we vote, I think we need a clarification just to make sure that you've got everything down as far as the conditions. So Liz, could you read that back to us, please?
All right. Conditions are, the size of the net shed is limited to not preclude a residential building of a house on the property, and the house should be at least 1,000 square feet.
Can I comment on that first? As
Certainly.
you did your mathematics on which
Yeah.
I thought that lot was smaller.
Yeah.
And now, we did the math, what was that figure I came up with?
12.9, I think.
To put it in other terms, 35% of that lot is 12,000 square feet.
That's a large chunk of ground. Do we
Yeah.
want to
That's- I
put a
just want
smaller
you-
limitation on
I just want
that?
you to have
Yeah.
that number.
Yeah.
It's an
So-
unusually sized lot,
Yeah.
where residential lots are usually
Yeah.
100 by 100, I granted.
Yeah.
I know you did
Okay.
your math.
Yeah.
Just whether you limit, you're limiting the size
Yeah.
of the house, so it could be an 11,000 square foot warehouse,
Yeah, and that's.
which is a pretty big
That's
sized building.
huge. That's huge.
That's pretty big.
I think the
Yeah.
other, I think
So
the
I
other
just-
thing,
I just wanted to
the
let
other
you-
reason is, I would say to stick to a 2,500 limit is the fact that to meet fire code, if you're going to do any type of work inside that building, if you're going to work on repairing a boat, if you're going to do any sort of woodworking, any sort of metalworking, if you go over 2,500 square feet, according to fire code, you're supposed to sprinkle the building.
Yeah.
And
we
so-
come under some parameters that, and the fact that it's a residential
Yeah.
building now, if it was commercial, the fire marshal, state
Yeah.
fire marshal would be looking at this, but in residential, he doesn't look at
So
residential.
I really think the 2,500 is a good limit to stick to, because then you're not going to be exceeding that's written into the fire code of going over 2,500 square
That
feet
would
as
be
being.
easier for
I
us
agree with Chris.
to figure out
So
too.
50 by 50 you're talking? or-
50 by 50 or, whatever parameters would work,
That's a big building.
so,
That's a warehouse, that's not a net shed.
yeah.
With that, the garage, that, how, what's it, 1,200 square feet.
Yeah,
I do too. That's big. Yeah,
yeah.
it's a big building.
What was that?
May I have clarification on that, how it's worded?
We haven't, I don't think they've gotten there yet, but I have size of the net shed to not preclude a building of a house, and then now you've changed it.
I would just say limit it to 2,500 square feet, because then you're within keeping of the standard code, and that's,
Yeah, I agree.
and that's a plenty big shed.
So no larger than 2,500 square feet.
Yeah,
Okay. And then you have it cited along the back setback, which is
well, they
reduced to 10 feet.
yeah.
So you're wanting to have the building side
pushed to the back of the lot, yes.
Does that require a variance, Joe? Or,
No.
No,
No.
if they're budding industrial,
well, industrial can go 0, but can residential go 0? Or can-
no, but if they don't get any closer than 10 feet, they're not gonna be.
There's no
facing
fire
any
code issues
fire
at that
code
point or
issues,
anything
no.
else, so.
Okay, that's one. That no containers be visible.
No containers be visible.
Limiting outside storage to crab pots and 2
Donnie, you there? Oh, okay, just a moment. It's for Amber. I don't know which one I was. Oh, if you'd like to make a call, okay. Sorry. Please don't be busy, there we go. Picking up on the first ring, hello? Hey, you're there. Sorry we dropped you, hold on just a second. You there?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So we covered outside storage, crab pots and 2 skiffs. No commercial equipment stored outside, which means no trucks,
No
backhoes.
commercial trucks, no backhoes.
And when you say commercial truck,
I mean, pickup truck could be parked out there, but no, you know,
Flatbed truck.
no flatbeds or.
No flatbeds?
No.
No flatbeds. So basically, they're not parking cars there unless they're using them,
Mhm.
because we have outside storage of crab pots and 2 skips.
Yeah.
So there's not going to be any.
But they can
vehicles
park cars while they're working
while they're
there,
working,
yeah.
But no vehicles stored
Yeah.
there.
Or if a residence goes in there in the future, they can park cars there
Sure.
because they're residents, but, you know.
A green belt in the front of the lot, between the fence and the front property line. Do you really intend for plantings or just like open, do you mean green belt, like we're gonna plant trees or green?
I think we discussed that before.
Or is it must
Liz?
be green belt?
Or Donna?
Yeah, we discussed that before, and we were talking about it had to be, we didn't want to make it where they had to go get landscaping type stuff. It was going to be natural stuff, and it was going to, because I think they had one neighbor volunteer alders and trees, natural trees, something at least 6 feet high to hide everything. It wasn't going to be a short, little huckleberry or blueberry, 1 foot high type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking something 4 to 5, 6 feet is what we had the discussion before. Natural stuff they could get locally.
Okay, so a green belt along the front property line with trees 4 to 6 feet high?
I think that's what we were discussing about. I don't have my notes with me where I'm at.
Yes.
Does anybody remember the discussion? Because it was to make it really easy, because I remember one of the neighbors that had come there, or I spoke to when I was there, had volunteered some of their trees to add to it and to put alders and things like that.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
That would be a real good one.
Dave?
I think the discussion was that if they put fill in, that alders will grow along the edge of the fill was what we originally discussed, but I.
Yeah.
There's already muskeg pines
Yeah.
growing there and
Yeah.
other, I don't see why they would have to plant something.
And then another enforceable thing, I agree with Mike, a green belt, in
Yeah.
my opinion, is just something undisturbed, they got a green belt up.
Okay,
going up
that's fine. It just,
Yeah.
we didn't make that specification. It was
Yeah.
volunteered to us when
Just don't
the
throw
ground
out-
mowers
you
and
cut
beavers
through
and
all
other
this.
neighbors were there. I just want to, they're the ones that brought that up, and so I just,
It's green already.
Yeah. It's plenty green.
So,
Could I ask?
yeah, we're getting to
Just a
that.
green belt, just don't, nothing goes there.
Okay, so.
So just a green belt.
As in natural
Space.
vegetation.
Natural vegetation.
sounds good to me.
Okay.
Nothing.
Let's see, 6-foot tall obscuring fence on 3 sides of the lot, which would be the front and the 2 sides.
The
No
sides
fence-
adjoining the road or the commercial, or residential property.
Right, no fence on the back side. The front line fence is 30 feet from the back from the property line. On the sides, it's 10 feet from the property line. Let's see. The fence needs to be up by August 1st, 2015. Net house is to be completed, which we're interpreting as having passed final inspection by Joe
Mm-hmm.
within 18 months from the issue of the conditional use permit.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I have.
Joe?
I'd just say that, as I pointed out, that when you say it's fenced 10 foot back from the side property lines, your fence can go into the setbacks. I know they have
Yeah.
side okay, but you want the fence.
Yeah, we want to keep,
Okay.
keep a little bit more of a buffer as well on the
Okay.
sides from the neighbors.
Side neighbors.
I
Yeah.
have one comment I'd like to make, if I could, if that's possible. The original conditional use permit, you do have a residential lot, which is right adjacent to this.
Mhm.
What they did is they made them come farther away from that lot. They put them like 50 foot. They still had, if you're 30 here and 50 there, you still have, you can build the 2,500 square foot net shed in that area and store your the pots and what you need, and that keeps you away from that residential lot. It's gonna harm those people right next to them, because they gotta look at it. And nobody's gonna wanna build a house in that next lot, and more than likely now, nobody's gonna wanna build a house across the street from that lot because of what's gonna be there. So if you move them away from that other residential lot, at least on that uphill side from them, that does give that person a little bit of a break. I don't know if it does much good, but it might help.
Comments?
Well, I kind of think 10 feet is,
Yeah.
honey, you don't want to gobble up, 30
Yeah.
feet from the front is quite a bit of loss
Yeah.
of of ground. You know,
But
that's
there's 20 feet,
substantial.
20 feet of that is set back anyway, so I think
But you-
giving the extra 10 feet of buffer to the road.
That
gives
offers a
little-
lot.
Yeah,
And
that
that's,
offers a
that
lot.
takes away quite a bit of
Jim?
property.
Yeah, Katrina, how far was your intentions to fill?
Well, we were gonna build, the fence has gotta be 10 foot, or I guess the warehouse has to start 10 foot from the back of the lot that
Yeah,
abuts the industrial, so
yeah, but I'm saying,
off the sides. I don't
To
know,
the
we
two-
have to go measure it out.
yeah, I mean, that's, just would be good to know how far you intended to stretch it out. I mean, you're not going, I assume that the fences would be go right at the edge of where you're going to fill, right? So, yeah. Where's that going to?
Yeah.
Maybe it's not
I
going to
think
be
the
out.
whole lot's gonna be filled,
Yeah.
I believe.
Well, that's what I was asking.
I think they're gonna fill the whole lot,
Yeah,
isn't that your
I'm gonna
intention?
fill the lot.
Well,
Except for the green
except
belt.
not the green belt.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the green belt.
And not outside those side fences, okay.
Yeah, that gives a 10-foot buffer on that one side, unless you,
I don't think we're gonna build it, smash it into the corner.
Mhm.
We're gonna make it so you can have some room around it.
And just to go back to the green belt, that goes all the way back to that front fence, right? So it's 30 feet of green belt.
yes.
Okay. That's all.
Do you have a motion to vote on this with the conditions?
Yes, I so move. Call the question, too.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded. Do you want to do a roll call vote on this one? Karen?
Fry,
Aye.
Hensinger,
Yes.
Stearns,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Demko,
Yes.
Robin,
Yes.
Okay. That's finished. Okay, we have new business. We're accepting an application for a variance of setback requirement for a carport over on, look at the address. 107 Philbin Lane. It looks like the carport's going to extend a foot or two into the side setback of the property. Is there a motion to accept that variance?
So moved.
Second?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Just to accept the application.
To accept the application, yeah. Yeah. Moved and seconded to accept the application. All in favor? Aye. Okay. And I guess that brings us to any discussion items?
No, the one thing is
What?
we got one more, we got item B, that hall variance, but I just want to make a comment on the search thing, just a little background, as she's sitting up there at the top of, I don't know what the name of the street is. Philbin, is it?
Yeah.
Another cul-de-sac lot, which is very difficult if you ever had a cul-de-sac lot to try to build on. So-
Yeah.
So that's the reason she's asking for this, because she built this house. When she originally got the house, actually had to get a variance from the cul-de-sac side
Yeah.
to place this house there, and now just extension of it, she wants to put a carport in, so she says, which is.
Yeah, I drove up there and took a look at it, and it doesn't look like it's going to be a major issue. The only other question is, what's the story on the adjoining lot to
It's
that?
an undeveloped subdivision.
That's what I thought,
And then the area behind that is borough property. The one to the left, which should be to the south.
And since it's only extending a foot or two into it, it shouldn't make any issue as far as fire goes or anything, so I don't see it as an issue.
Can I ask?
Yeah.
You may.
Go for it.
Joe, yeah, I didn't have a chance to go up there and take a look. So when you say it's a residential, it's zoned residential up there,
Correct.
but it hasn't been subdivided?
The
Who
area
owns
which, I do not know that. The one that were on the left there where it says legend on your map,
Right,
that
yeah.
property, it would be I don't know, we'd have to look up. what
Be like
letters
Burl,
for it.
perhaps Burl property or something, or?
There's a picture.
I think it used to be,
I
Isom
mean, that's the
property.
edge of the house, the
Okay.
carport's gonna go right
Oh,
there,
I
and
think
it's
that
just,
Isom has been subdivided. That-
Okay.
That lot that
So-
goes like
Oh,
from
okay.
Sandy up.
All right,
I think.
thanks.
No
Yeah,
problem.
that's this one.
It's easy.
I think it's.
makes it simple.
Yeah, I ran out of
It's
time,
still all
obviously.
private.
Yeah.
That was the next on my list, and I realized it was
So-
late.
Yeah, I just went around to all these different things we were talking about and took pictures yesterday, so I could kinda have something.
Yeah, but, yeah, so that being said, that would actually, if you look at it, that map, that's considered her rear property line.
Okay,
Whereas it's kind of the side property line, I don't know. So that's why she's asking for 10 feet of, which would essentially be a 20-foot setback.
okay.
So, and then you see that 17.
That's, I just saw the line, it looked like it was only a 10-foot setback, so,
Yeah,
yeah.
no, it's kind of, see her front and back, her front would be where the cul-de-sac side is.
Yeah.
Which she's got, that's why she had to get a variance when she built that, because if she was 17.7 on that corner instead of 20.
Yeah,
And then 14.1 on the back, and she met the setbacks on the side, which was 23 feet, but now, once it's stretched out some, it's cul-de-sac lots.
23.7 is what she was at, yeah. and-
That cul-de-sac, that turnaround should have started down lower, it was kind of a design thing, as you guys.
Yeah.
Anyhow, that's the history of that.
We just
Okay.
need arch-shaped houses.
Yeah. Yeah, an L shape.
Okay. Any other discussion items?
Well, you have the addition of
The variance for Long Hall.
Oh,
acceptance.
the acceptance, for oh, that's right, we have the acceptance for the variance for Ron Hall. Any motion to accept the variance for Ron Hall?
Application
Or
and
the application for the variance for Ron Hall?
I so moved. So we accept the variance and the application for Ron Hall.
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
So that'll be discussed at our next meeting. Discussion items. Well, I was going to ask if, what dates are good for the next meeting. If we go with our regular meeting, I'm going to be out of town. I know for sure at this point. If we push it off a little bit.
Karen's got the handy calendar. I brought a calendar.
So if we push it off a little bit, I got a calendar on here. I can tell you when I'm going to be back, if I can get this thing to open up.
I'd like to bring something up in the new business.
Okay, we're discussion items. Let's
Yeah.
find out, talk about the next meeting and then go from there. I'll be back in town, I think, on the 18th.
I'll be gone on the 18th.
Mr. Chair, I'm leaving the 17th.
Okay,
I'll probably be gone that week to that spring break.
yeah.
What about like the 10th or 12th?
What? I can call in, I'm just saying, I'm just.
How about the 10th or 12th?
It's supposed to be on the 10th, yeah. Yeah,
I'm good with that.
Yeah,
that's fine with me, I can just call in for it, so.
I'm not going anywhere.
Okay. I just figure we discuss it now and try to get a general idea what's going on.
How about Donna?
The 10th of March, I should be back next week, so.
Okay,
The 10th of March I will be.
okay.
So the 10th of March, 2 o'clock?
Class.
That's
And-
our regular, that's
and-
actually our regular
Yeah.
scheduled meeting time.
And
Let's meet at noon and have pizza.
March 10.
School has closed.
Yeah.
I'll bring the beer.
Mr. Jarrett, can I ask you a question?
Sure, you can go right ahead.
Ask away.
It's discussion time.
Won't be on the 10th. They have to-
Well, can we make it, when will you be
I'll
available?
call in and listen,
You're not going to be here on the 10th?
no. Anyway, go ahead.
Joe's not going to be here on the 10th?
What's your question, Dave?
That's my question.
Oh, I'm not gonna be here, no.
Can we do it on the 3rd, or is that too early?
Too early.
I have my mail
No, Karen's gotta get the mailings out, so
Yeah.
I don't have to be here. If nothing else comes up, these other than I think, I gave you guys the explanation on the Ron Hall thing, so if there's
Yeah.
any questions on that, why it happened the way it happened.
The only thing I'm concerned about the Ron Hall piece of property is by the diagram it shows to be on, I don't have it in front of me, on the one side of the house because he talked about it being mobile. And I've been under that house before and all that water drains under there and I was quite concerned about making manure tea And then where the ditches all blocked, the culverts are, is getting chicken manure tea?
Okay, I asked that question too, and basically, he collects all the manure and he gives it to his neighbors for their gardens.
Okay.
So it's already creating manure tea out of their gardens, but, I think his operation is pretty clean as far as,
Right, that's the other point, that's fine.
he's actually.
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah,
Chicken coop.
and, when he said mobile, the fact of the matter is that 8x8 chicken coop is actually, it's pretty creative. He built it on, he's got a framework underneath, and he's got it on these big casters, so. he can
That's
move it
a
back.
cool state-of-the-art.
Yeah, yeah.
I guess what my question is, if it's mobile, then why does he have to go through the variance?
Well, when you say mobile, it's somewhat mobile.
The chicken-
the run, it's attached to the chicken coop, which is pretty. You can call something mobile, but it's really it could be moved. With
I got you now, the attachment.
The chicken run is
Some of them
not
are attached and some are
mobile.
not.
Shed is mobile. It's kind of.
Yeah, it's kind of, but it's.
The runs where you just pick them up, and other ones that they're in the ground, and when they're in the ground, to me, they're no longer mobile. If they're sitting on the ground, they're mobile, so.
Yeah,
okay.
well, it's mobile to
Yeah.
effect, but it's going to be there.
You had a question or comment?
No.
Okay.
I do. Just a
Yeah.
quick one. Is there any way that we could make this process faster as far as we're approving the variance application instead? I mean, it draws it on for months for some of these people. And
Yeah.
it just seems like there should be a more
Well,
expedient
this
way.
thing should have been expedient, except we didn't realize there was a
Right.
setback issue with the
I mean,
variance.
it's like the Bev Cirques thing. We
Yeah.
just, now we just gotta wait another month. And it seems like there should be an easier way to make this happen
That's a
faster.
question for Liz.
Well, after the comp plan is done, we hope to go through and review all of our planning ordinances.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we'd like to address is the fact that it's a little bit cumbersome, the process where you have to go through 2 meetings before you actually even get your issue addressed. And if isn't a quorum or something like that, then it could run into 3, 4, 5 meetings.
Right.
That seems to be a bit much to ask people to go through
Yeah.
that, or just getting, especially like a really simple conditional use permit or a variance.
Yeah, with the variance for
So, thanks for bringing it up, and we want to address it, because we have to redo all the ordinances anyway to change them from the city to the borough. And as we go through and amend those, that's one of the things that we want to address.
Good. Makes sense.
Well, I want to thank everybody for putting up with this long process of this meeting.
So I'll go on to the 10?
And what? The 10th.
Okay.
And is there a motion to adjourn?
New business. I
second it.
New
You
business.
want to put something in the new business?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, Liz has been working on economic development, and here, we have so many things changing in this community. And what I had been thinking, I'm just throwing this out here now, is to everybody bring in like 4 ideas that they think could be developed for new industry, new something in this community. Whether it be logging, expanding fishing, whatever it is, and we could sit down and go over that at a meeting as new business, and then come up with our recommendation and then give it to the city council. Let them review it, and then assign us, they could prioritize it, and then assign us specific things to look at, and then we would be working with Liz and look at grants and look at all other things. But I think this community, to be successful, that we're going to have to look at some types of diversification. And other
I have a
types of-
question to ask with his comment with Liz. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I only get every other sentence sometimes with you guys, so it's hard to hear. Liz, his suggestion is where a lot of people feel, diversity is where we need to go. But don't we have to kind of use the comprehensive as a guideline? Because if I recall correctly, the last comprehensive plan, people did not want the veracity. They wanted things to be same as goal. So do we have to go by what the people want in a comprehensive plan, or can we do such items?
I think as a planning commission, I mean, I will probably look back at the ordinance and see what your charge is as the planning commission, but certainly in development of the comp plan, which is your charge, there is an economic development section. And that type of activity where you come up with ideas and strategies for implementation is certainly something that could be included.
Great. Okay, good. I just want to make sure we can do that.
And it's certainly timely.
But I think it'd be a good time to be doing that, yes, as far as, it's part of the comprehensive plan, is where it really needs to be.
That's right.
I don't want us to go forward and do this here, and people say, no, we're supposed to use the comprehensive plan of what the people chose.
Yeah,
well, I think it's important to fold in, those recommendations into.
Yeah, we have such diversified people, and people have different ideas, and we could come up maybe with some ideas that could help the community develop what we got, keep what we got, and help develop some new ones.
Correct.
And that's my point, and I wanted to put it, to at least be thinking about it. And if we could all put together a thing, maybe we could do it this way.
Liz, do you have any suggestions and guidelines of what you think we can do?
Well, since we have these really nice consultants available to us, I think the best way is, if you guys want to come up with some ideas, to sort of plug it into that process and provide them with that information and let them run some of those things to ground, and then, try and fold them in as appropriate into the overall comp plan.
I think a good time to discuss that with them is and maybe you want to schedule a time to sit down with them when they're in town, Tom.
Okay.
They'll be here, the 26th, 27th, and 28th.
Yeah,
So,
I would do that.
Sure.
so.
Okay.
And Liz, you're going to contact us when we're going to meet with them?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
There
thank
should
you.
be something coming out soon.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, they're supposed to be getting back to us soon, I understand,
Yeah.
as far as to
The
nail down their
schedule.
schedule, so.
Okay.
We have a motion to adjourn.
We do, too.
Yes. We have a second.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.